I'm Reeves Kurtner, and this is Season 2 of In Your Business. In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington, online at mosesmeansmore.com, empowered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications. In this episode, we sit down with Matt Walker and Jeff Stevens, two of the three owners and founders of Village Caregiving, a West Virginia-based company that provides non-medical home care. Village Caregiving started in Barboursville and is now in 18 states, soon to be 20, and are currently building a new corporate headquarters in Barboursville, which is a part of an overall transformation in the village that Village Caregiving is behind. We discuss the origins of Village Caregiving, their keys to expansion, their future plans, and some details, a little sneak peek of their new restaurant in Barboursville, which will be opening soon. Let's get in your business. Matt, Jeff, thanks for stopping by and sharing your all story. And Matt, you introduce yourself, and then Jeff, you next. So that way we can put a voice and to the name and all that kind of stuff. Introduce yourself, your title, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm Matt Walker. I'm one of the co-owners of Village Caregiving, along with Jeff Stevens and Andrew Moss. We're a West Virginia-based, sort of born and raised company in Barboursville. Where we started our first office and have since grown really around the state, around the region, and at this point around the country to provide non-medical home care for people. Really proud to be in Barboursville, and we're even beefing up that capacity in Barboursville by putting an actual corporate headquarters there, new build in the village of Barboursville. We bought the old Thornburg house, which is an old sort of, I call it a mansion wraparound porch. And we've filled that up, and we need more space because I tell people about every 100 people or so we hire around the country, we need another person in Barboursville to support that. So we need space, and we need to keep bringing awesome people on our team.
Yep. Jeff, go ahead.
Sure. Hey, thank you. I'm Jeff Stevens. Matt already gave you a little bit there.
Yes.
One of the founders, CEO's my title now at Village Caregiving, and then Matt and I do lots of other stuff. Reeves, you and I have been friends a long time, so thanks for having us down.
Yeah.
Our voices sound a little bit alike,
right.
So it's this might be confusing.
We'll be all right.
We got that West Virginia accent. That's a good thing, right?
It's all good, yes. We before we got started, we spent about 10 minutes talking about Oasis, which we could do another hour on, but we will not. We will spare everybody by all that. Let's start with the brief overview, the history of Village Caregiving. Started in Barboursville. How did it start, and what was it like when it started?
Well, we started Village Caregiving in 2013.
Okay.
And Matt and I had been in business before, did various other things, a lot of other things, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That kind of came out of, we had used services for our own family. Matt, you can talk about it if you want to. His grandfather required 24-hour round-the-clock care in Tampa. I used services for my grandmother. And I don't want to disparage the other companies because some of the caregivers that came in my situation, they were good.
Okay.
It was just kind of inconsistent. And so even going back to when I was a little kid, we would have caregivers in the house for my mother's dad.
Okay.
Consistency is a problem there. And if the caregivers can't regularly show up, you're leaving work to go do it.
That's
it's just totally disruptive to your own life. So I think one of the most important things we want to offer, in addition to making it affordable and a kind culture and a high quality of care, is really just consistency because it transforms a family's home.
That's right.
If you're listening to this right now and you need help in your home, it has to be every day, and the person shows up like 99% of the time.
That's
it can't be 50-50 hit or miss, or it's too disruptive.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the philosophy behind the company, and how we know why we started and what the vision was back 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Now.
So when you first started, like how did you start this? How did this start?
Yeah, I think Jeff and I had worked on some policy issues at the Capitol in Charleston related to home care, which was, I call it sort of an immature industry at that point.
Right,
It was not a big business that it's become now. There were minimum wage and overtime exemptions. Mm-hmm. So there were no rules almost, especially in West Virginia back then. And we had a friend from high school, Andrew Moss, who was finishing law school, didn't know if he wanted to practice law, similarly to us, didn't. And we launched it and really with just a vision that we would serve that community. I think at that point.
Barboursville, Huntington.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it started growing. We learned a lot of tough lessons those first couple years about how to run that type of business, because it's very different than the sort of legal or lobbying business that we were used to, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You were doing a lot of interviewing and hiring and scheduling and billing and all this stuff. But it turned out to be a real education. It still is for us, I think, on how to run a business the right way and treat people really well and provide excellent service, and also try to make some sort of a profit.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
As to how we practically did it and started it,
right?
We just did it.
Right.
Wasn't that much thought around it. That's how Matt and I have always operated. It's like, we kind of have that entrepreneurial bone in our body.
Got it.
And you just go and you just do stuff.
Yep.
But I get asked that question sometimes. Like, if I'm a young person, I want to start my own business, what's it going to be like? It's going to be really hard.
Yeah, sure.
But if it's something you feel called to do, just jump in the pool and start trying to swim.
Well, the biggest thing, you saw the need, right? Just from you mentioned, your own experience. You said like, there's a if we have a need for it, then others are going to need for it too.
Yeah.
And one thing Jeff said, I'll piggyback on. When I grew up, I watched my mother take care of both her parents in our house. By the way, they had Alzheimer's and some other disabilities for over a decade.
Yep. She
was a caregiver, which looking back, she was a saint, because it's really hard work even to do for a short period of time. If you're doing it for a decade, I don't know how you can do it. And also function as a wife, mother, friend, and do other things when you're caring for somebody 24 hours a day. And this is what I'm getting at. I sympathize so much with people in our community and all over the state and country who are in that role.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be a caregiver for your loved one, and it's physically and mentally and psychologically taxing, and then turn around a second later and be the family member.
That's right.
It's two different roles. I would even say to some people it needs to be two different roles, or it can be really, really difficult for you and put a lot of stress and strain on your relationships and your family. But that's where we want to be a resource to take that burden off of people.
Sure. You mentioned non-medical care. What does that mean for people that might not understand that?
Yeah, so non-medical care to me means help with activities of daily living.
Okay.
And it's really everything that you need to live and be happy and thrive that's short of medical care.
Okay.
So you're helping people bathe, eat, toilet, light housekeeping, getting up and down, walking, socializing, getting into the community, because people still need that interaction. In fact, that can be, to me, as important health-wise and happiness-wise for people as the actual personal care.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So we've already kind of hinted on this a little bit, talking about your growth. Talk about your growth. How many states you're in now? How many employees you have? And when did that start happening? When did you go, hey, we need to go beyond Huntington, Barboursville area?
Well, it took a little while, which I'm proud of, actually, because what happens there in the meantime is you're not just, taking venture capital money to try to microwave your success and stuff. You learn a lot of the lessons you need to learn along the way. So we start in 2013, like I said. We didn't even open a second office for 3.5 years.
Okay.
That lots learned in those 3.5 years, and I'm, again, proud. I think that's a responsible way to grow a business, just personally.
That's right, yes. You can grow too fast, right? Yeah.
But then it begins to build on itself. So then in 2017, I think 2 places open.
Okay.
2018, you can open 3 or 4. And then in 1 year, like 20 offices open, right? But that takes a long time to get to that point. Currently, we're in, what is it, Matt, 18 states?
Soon to be 20.
Okay.
Yep.
And we have about somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 employees. There are over 3,000 that are active on the roster.
Yeah.
There are others that kind of, are more seasonal. But, it's a big company, and it stretches a lot of territory, man, and that's a challenge too. It's a fun challenge, but it's hard to stay connected. The culture is what I mean, the challenge was.
That's right.
So say you have an office out in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which we do.
Yeah.
How do you make the director there feel a part of our company here in Barboursville, West Virginia? That's tough.
How do you do it?
Well, she was in our office yesterday.
Yes.
So you bring them in.
That's right.
You stay in touch with them a lot. She came in and did a podcast on our channel.
Yeah.
She well, what else do we do? I mean, you have regional meetings, you have annual meetings. You just try to make as many touches as you can.
Right.
You hear the hesitation in my voice there?
Yeah, no,
it's because of how hard it is.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
And I worry about it a lot, too. It's because I don't want people to feel they're out on some island. Of course. And because I love these people.
Yeah.
If you come work for us, I love these people. And I want them to feel great and have a fulfilled job.
Yeah.
I'm not a warm, fuzzy guy, but one thing I've learned about having a business is creating and protecting your culture, which when Jeff and I, and he's very good at this, by the way, and that's why he's the CEO, because he gets it and he's really good at fostering that. I didn't get it for a long time because, when you're in business for yourself and you only have a few people in the office, you're working, right? And you're not worrying about culture of a business. But then he's right. Once you get outside your doors and outside the state and around the country, you've got to protect your culture and create a really positive culture that people want to buy into and want to be a part of, or you can't succeed.
You're right.
And that's maybe the biggest lesson I think that we've learned is how do we create not just a successful business, but a business that people gravitate toward.
Sure.
And you're getting the best talent, because that's we call it the kind of the people game. You got to win the people game in home care because there are hundreds, thousands of competitors.
Of course.
There's options for people to go to, but
Right.
we want to be the best option, and to do that, we have to have a really strong culture. So good on Jeff for leading that effort.
How is being based in Barboursville, Huntington area? How is that an advantage for your company? How is it a disadvantage for your company?
Yeah, it is an advantage.
Okay.
I've seen this now. So as I go around and I'm in a executive leadership program right now.
Okay.
I'm a real believer. If I'm going to look around the office and ask other people to continue to grow and develop and level up
Sure.
their game, I better be doing the same thing, or I don't have the moral authority to ask anybody else to do something I'm not willing to do.
That's right.
So I've been around a lot of other people from other parts of the country, and now we've got offices all over the country. I can tell you, this is not just Jeff throwing out wild ideas. Of fact, I've seen now that our values, we all know it. We live here, right? The Appalachian values we have of taking care of each other,
Yeah.
being kind to each other, helping each other out, and caring about each other.
That's
There's
right.
a joke. I've heard somebody, I was in San Diego not long ago, and they were saying, I've always been told if you break down on the side of a road, you want to do it in West Virginia because that's where somebody's going to stop and help you out, change your tire, right?
Yep.
That attitude can go to Cheyenne, Wyoming, or Baltimore, or Nashville, or Wisconsin, and it shows up in a way that resonates with people every single time.
I like that.
Yeah, I think when we were younger, Reeves, Matt, like, don't you think West Virginia had the perception of like, oh, it's backwards, we're not sophisticated enough to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's kind of turned around. I think
Yeah.
people are more intrigued by West Virginia as a state at a national level and kind of wondering about
Yeah,
it,
sure.
like in awe of it a
Yeah.
little bit. And I saw it, I don't want to go too long, but I saw Max Knapp had written an op-ed in the paper about how there was a Twitter study, which state, they ranked the states, how often they use the phrase, I love you, publicly.
Okay.
West Virginia ranks number one
Love
on
it.
that. And I'm not surprised by that
Yeah, I'm
at
with
all.
you.
It's just who we are.
We do. I saw an article too, and it was talking about the drug epidemic, right, in our area, and it said where we've been impacted more than other areas, right? But we should have a worse homeless problem than we do, based on the number of people that the per capita. But the reason we don't is we take care of each other. You know, and I know we're not talking about drug epidemics today, but we take care of each other. I like that. That's interesting.
All the time we
Yeah.
hear, I've never worked for a company like this.
Yeah.
And I think also, Matt, you talk about this, but he's being modest, by the way. He's the president of the company and has informed the culture just as much as me. I appreciate you saying that, though. But
one of the things that we now sort of demand, and again, Jeff, I think, put this in place, is that we bring any of these leadership management people to Barboursville.
Sure.
When we first hire them, because we want them to see what we're about. They're buying in, right? They're making a career change often. They're taking a leap of faith.
That's right.
They've probably never been to Barboursville, West Virginia. They've probably never met us in person.
Sure.
And we want to bring them in. And of course, I know this sort of dovetails into just how important this is to us, because we're starting to make some investments and do some things in Barboursville to make it even more wonderful than it already
That's
is.
right. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
I want to talk about all that too. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, but we want to bring them here. They need to come here to see what we're all about.
Yeah.
And once they leave here, it has been unanimous, I think, that they love it, they appreciate it, they feel just wrapped up in this team at Village Caregiving. So,
what I was thinking was when people say, I've never worked at a place like this before, I think that that's sort of a happy accident of the fact that Matt and I got out of school when we were young and went straight into business for ourselves. And of course, man, you don't know that much, but you figure it out along the way. But what did happen is we never worked at a place where it just had this toxic, awful culture, and we had these models for how to run a place that we thought were the right way to do it, where people don't treat each other well. So I hear these stories people come to Village Caregiving with from places they've worked before, or I read a Harvard Business Review article about how to be nice to people when they off-board from the company. I'm like, good Lord, do people need to be taught this stuff? It blows my mind.
Right.
That we just never even saw it. Yeah. And so I think that's why a lot of times people will say, man, I've never worked anywhere like this. And we're like, really? Huh. Okay, but that's the Appalachian value stuff we were raised with.
Any disadvantages, though, being in a bar? I mean, travel, I think, would be difficult, right? It's harder to get to some places from smaller airports. Is it agree, disagree on that? Anything else on that?
Yeah, we're always going to face those challenges, and I've faced them a lot lately. I've been having to go to D.C. a lot, often connecting flights.
Just to get to D.C.,
yeah,
I know.
I drove back from there yesterday, actually. I'll say this, the whole climate of the state, a place to just do business, is improving.
Good.
And it's still not there yet, if I'm being honest, and I don't want to be too critical. West Virginia is an over-regulated state in our industry. We shouldn't be, and I think in the next few years that might get peeled back a little bit. The whole the tax reform stuff that's going on. I think West Virginia can be an even more attractive place to do business, but it's not quite there yet. But it's getting better.
I got it. So let's talk about the growth. We talked about slow and then 20 in 1 year and so forth. Now we're 18 to 20 states. 18 and then almost 20. What factors do you attribute to that success of now being in 20 states and having 3,000 to 4,000 employees?
Well, we say this all the time. We kind of operate on common sense principles. We do have, like we're talking about, a really good culture where people stay. If you're constantly turning over the workforce, it just makes things messy. And I've heard other people in business say, well, what does it matter how people's feelings are? We're trying to blank and achieve these strategies and these goals. I'm like, brother, you're missing the plot.
Absolutely.
People's feelings 100% are going to translate into dollars and cents next year.
Yep.
That's part of it.
It is.
So big on the culture, and we work really hard.
Sure.
Back in those days when we were building this company, Matt and I worked our absolute butt off, man. That's kind of what I say to people that might be listening. Should I start a business? So you're going to work.
That's right.
It's a lot of hard work. Other than that, you surround yourself with talented people. I don't think there's any magic sauce to it. Just work real hard, use common sense, and be courageous and brave enough and humble enough to just want to keep learning and getting better and just go.
What goes into it and going, hey, we want to be in a new state. We're not. I don't know. You're not in Nevada. I don't know. Are you? But like, hey, we why Nevada? Why Wyoming? Why? How does that work?
Yeah, I think we've developed, again, learning lessons along the way. I think we dipped our toes into Kentucky. We went and opened an Ashland office, for example. Then we went to southeastern Ohio slowly. Though you're wading in, you're checking it out, seeing what a new state's like. I think that for me, and I'm a compliance-minded person at our company, you're looking at various things. You're looking at, of course, reimbursement issues. That's just a reality of being in business. You're looking also at the regulatory burden. You're looking at workforce struggles. You're looking at competition. You're looking really at places that are friendly to a new business.
Sure.
And I can't give advice to policymakers that much about this because I'm not one, but I would say make your state and community as friendly to a new business as you can. And I get also respecting and valuing your current, of course, homegrown crop of businesses, but make it easy for people to start something new in your community, and I think you'll reap the benefits of that. And so we've gravitated to places that do that. We've got 8 or 9 offices in Kentucky, 8 or 9 in Ohio. We have 9 in West Virginia, and then we've branched Midwest, Northern, and wrapped back around even through the Southwest. But that's what I look at when we're looking at a new place.
Sure.
We have a director of business data analytics that can research a market and then take into account all the regulatory things that Matt's talking about. When we went to one state, it took 13 months to get a license to get going. I mean, can you imagine? It's ridiculous, man. We're trying to come there, give your state a new business, give people jobs, take care of people that need help, and you're going to make us wait over a year before we can even start?
And
That's crazy.
I'm sure people say the same thing about our state sometimes too.
I agree.
Yeah. What you mentioned you've learned. Talk about some of the lessons that you have learned.
Yeah, I think I've never had any management training, really. Learning to manage people and interact with people and not micromanage, learning to trust, hire great people and trust them completely, which I'm getting better at, and I actually really like it. The better people we're hiring and the more I can pass off, that's wonderful, and it actually allows you to scale, right? Which again, this is a Jeff thing more than me, but it's allowed us to expand, I think, in ways that we never thought possible. Like we've adopted a lot of tech. We've developed some software even of our own that we own, and it's really eye-opening to me about how many more communities and people we can reach when we start to embrace tech and new ways of doing things.
Sure.
Where we would have never been able to grow like we have if we were clutching to these processes like the way we've always done it. Those are kind of dirty words to me now at this point.
Me too. Yep.
I think most of I don't know, Matt, maybe you resonate with this. I don't know. Most of the lessons I've learned actually center around just really trying to become a better person. And that's around empathy and humility. When we were younger, like a lot of people, I got a big ego. Some might say I still do.
It's okay to have an ego.
But it's worse when you just think you know everything, and then you don't have enough empathy for people. And so you see, listen, these caregivers that do the work in the homes, which we've gone and done ourselves before too, they are doing the Lord's work. It is tough work, really important work, huge purpose behind their work, and they should be super proud of it. It took me a little while to really fully grasp that. So whenever they're calling off or they have a personal crisis and stuff, as on the other side of that, you're the employer, that leads to frustration.
Of course.
And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this again. You just got to get past that. These people have really tough jobs and tough lives, and you got to be there to support it as best you can. There's the empathy that I've learned along the way.
Right.
And then the humility side is what I'm talking about with ego and things is just, man, you just can't think you know everything. And if you're like that, it blocks off every good thing in your life. And I'm talking about how good of a husband and dad you can be, in addition to how good of a boss or employer you can be, how good a friend you are, your relationship with God, or how you're going to continue to develop and learn in your own life and the books you read, the podcasts you listen to. It's just important to continue to be curious and want to grow and learn.
That's right.
Stuff I didn't know that when I was younger, when we started business. I just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right. Some of the most, we can't give enough credit to our direct care staff or caregivers. Some of the most mentally strong people I know now are those caregivers. They work all day. They're taking care of people who are vulnerable and underserved and need their help. And then they clock out and they have to go home and take on even additional tasks and duties. You don't give enough credit to those people until you do it, and even do it consistently. And I'm speaking for myself. I haven't done that. Like pure mental toughness and like Jeff said, empathy and dedication to other people. It's pretty amazing the work they're doing. And I'll tell you when it manifests itself most for us. We have an annual event, and this past year we had several caregivers that got awards and went up and talked about their experiences. everybody's crying in the whole room. These people are truly amazing. It was by far the most meaningful, best part of our event. And I didn't know it would be beforehand. And the people, even the management people, our compliance people who may have never even, some of them, met their caregivers, thought, wow, that's what these people are doing every day that I'm in the, sitting at a desk supporting. Like, that's the work right there with that lady, that single mom is doing all day.
That's right.
And then going home and taking care of kids and clocking back in at 7 a.m. the next morning.
Yep.
Amen. That caregiver that I presented the award to from Indiana, Kylie Bradshaw is her name. I could barely do it, dude. I was choked up, tears in my eyes at the point, because it's so deeply meaningful. And you're right, I didn't know it was going to be that tough. Like, whoops, I could barely get through it.
Yeah. How do you 3,000 to 4,000 employees? How is it hiring? How is that process? I mean, when I do this podcast, that comes up a lot, man. It's hard to find people to work and show up. I mean, obviously, the showing up part, that has to go with culture. I definitely would say that for you. But just getting people to work and hiring people, how is that process?
Tough for us. Like, it's tough for a lot of people. And because the home care industry, it's not going backwards.
No.
This is only going to explode and explode and explode. The Department of Labor's got all kinds of statistics on this. It's only going to increase. Well, where are you going to find all of these caregivers to do this work? They're going to have to come from somewhere. And that's a challenge right now because it's a pretty new industry. Matt started off talking about how a decade ago there weren't even labor laws built around it.
That's right.
Now it's more sophisticated and it's starting to get more attention, but there are still plenty of people that they don't even know it exists.
That's right.
So you just got to go educate a workforce that maybe right now they're at retail or fast food or at the mall, whatever it is. Like, hey, here's a job that has a tremendous purpose behind it, huge flexibility in your schedule. If you need to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and
you'll find a place for somebody that wants to work Monday, Wednesday,
if you
Friday.
can only work nights, then you can do that. So home care is going to be an attractive option, but it is tough, and a lot of that's just education that it's out there.
Go ahead, Matt.
No. The last thing I would add is, and we not only have to find people, we have to find the right people. Right? You're putting a person in the home of someone else, very personal settings, bathing, dressing,
of course,
things, you got to find great people. And that's where I think we're spending this extra time and effort, is to attract the best people. People, of course, have to pass background checks, drug tests, get trained, be responsible, be consistent. And so coming out of the pandemic, as everyone knows, there are fewer people who want to get into the actual in-person workforce. There's a lot of remote options. There's all sorts of options. So getting people A and B, getting the right people is our goal, and I think we're going to win at that. That's where we're spending tremendous time and effort and resources to do that.
Yeah, sure. When you go into another state, is that something else you also take into consideration? Available workforce and things like that. Like, hey, we can find 50 people here or whatever that number is per office. I don't know what that number is, but is that something that goes in that decision too?
It is taken into account. So our HCM payroll provider is ADP. They have on there lots of benchmarking data and statistics where you can see the labor force that's available, how much prevailing wages are in the area. So it's part of the decision. Yeah.
Have you all had to increase wages since COVID and all that? I mean, to get people to stay and come to work?
We definitely have increased wages.
Yeah.
But we've always paid pretty darn good.
Okay.
I mean, that's why we've had a lot of success. In fact, to go back to what's made you better, I think that's part of it too. We've just paid better than our competition in almost everywhere we've been.
Right.
So people want to work there. And then the caregivers, they talk to each other a lot.
Okay.
It's kind of a little community, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, I came over to Village Caregiving. I'm making $3 more an hour than I was last week. You should come too. And then that snowballs on itself. But, we paid better. And then we took, some programs where you have to pay better. And so that's a pleasure to do that. We've always compensated the people really well. And it's something we're probably most proud of too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's right. We have competitive wages and benefits. Of course, coming into the pandemic and back out, there's a lot of money floating around to enhance wages, which is wonderful, by the way, and I always say we're thankful for that. Now, when it fell off the table and our reimbursement rates, especially in West Virginia, fell way back down, it's been a struggle to sustain where we are, but we're going to do it, and we're committed to paying people the best in the area, really anywhere we go, to get the best people. That's just an investment you have to make to get the best people. But it's really difficult. It's the most difficult thing that we face, I think. So, and
again, going back to retaining employees, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone's receiving your care and they really like working with Susan, and then the Susan leaves, and then they get a new person, and then Jeannie leaves, and then Brenda leaves, right? They want that consistency, right? They want the person they like. That's really important, right? To keep you on, your services on.
It's incredibly important.
Yes,
another thing I didn't know early enough in the company. It was how important it is to preserve someone's dignity in their home, and that's what you're talking about right there. You're spot on, Reeves.
Relationships.
Okay, let's say you and I are sick, right? I can't get out of bed. I need help using the bathroom. I've always given myself a bath. I've always made my own meals. I've always taken my trash out. Now I have to give away some of my abilities to someone else.
Yep.
That's really personal.
It is.
Extremely personal. It's intimate. I don't want just a parade of different people coming through here every week that have to give me a bath.
Right.
I can form a bond with a couple of people, and that makes it easier, and it helps me preserve my dignity and as much autonomy as I can.
Yep.
So the consistency is huge,
Yeah.
And I've learned that over time too. Yeah.
We've also kind of touched on this a little bit. Let's talk about what you're doing in Barboursville now. It's becoming the village of caregiving, right? And instead of Village Barboursville now, you're slowly but surely, and you're building that new beautiful building there. Talk about everything that's going on right now in Barboursville that you're doing.
Yeah, so Jeff and I, we've grown up, and many of our team members at our company too, grew up running around Barboursville, riding our bikes through Barboursville, playing Little League in Barboursville, going to school in Barboursville. And so we take a lot of pride in the area. We have this really beautiful downtown area there in Main and Central. So when we first finished law school in 2006, 7-ish, Jeff and I, we got this building at 650 Main Street, right? It's a little building. It's hundreds of years old. It's a historic building. It used to be a bank. It's been 40 different things over the years. I kind of fell in love with these older buildings. Now, they're not always the most convenient, but I love some of the unique character of them. And so we've sort of continued that, and we've purchased a few of the other buildings there in Barboursville, and we're trying to really improve them, rehab some of them, turn them into really useful office space. We occupy probably about 20 some offices right there in Barboursville now. We were fortunate enough to grab that Thornburg house, the historic house right on the corner of Main and Central, filled it up. It's been our sort of corporate headquarters thus far, and now we're building something to complement it right there on the corner, a new build that's going to hopefully fit in really well with the look and the feel of Barboursville. And we're going to have 16 or 17 offices in there, and a couple other neat perks for people, again, to try to attract great people to move here, and come here and work with us. And so we're working on that. And we have even a couple other projects, a restaurant. You can maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. What motivated this decision? I mean, you kind of, in a weird way, you contradicted yourself. You're like, I like old buildings, but we're gonna build a new one, right? So, but where was the?
He loves old buildings. He's building a new one because there wasn't another old one to buy.
I guess that's what I was saying. Like, why there's so many buildings around here, but is that it? You're like, well, if we want to stay in Barboursville, we're going to build a new one. Is that kind of where it was?
It sort of was, and here's what happened, honestly. You start to get in silos. Like, you put 10 people in building A, you put 12 people in building B, and we sort of said, we need one building that's pretty large to grab everybody and put them in the same spot. And so that's what we're doing. And, there's some conveniences that go along tech-wise, especially with a new build. So we are doing that. But he is right. I do love these old buildings. And if you don't believe me, go up to our, for example, our Clarksburg office, which is in this crazy-looking old painted lady mansion up there that we bought. It was in disrepair, and we rehabbed it. But we have a bunch of old historic buildings that we've gotten a decent deal on and turned them into a really neat place to base some of our offices.
Nice. And are there tax credits on some of those too, right? The historical buildings, or?
There are. We're exploring some of that. We've never actually done that, but I would like to. It's a bit of a process, as everything else regulatory-wise in West Virginia, but we're going to explore it.
How do you think, building, because if you go through Barboursville, yes, you do see the construction of that, and you see what's going on with, what's the name of the new restaurant? Help me out.
Bruno's Spotted Hare.
Spotted Hare.
It's got a little leaping rabbit.
I was like, it's something with a rabbit, but I couldn't pull it out.
Yeah.
So
people will end up calling it Bruno's.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, you're
that's fine.
probably right. But you talk about how investing in the community will benefit Village Caregiving. What's the benefit in your all's mind
of expanding, building up the town like that? Well, there's great benefit because you bring somebody in. At some point we're going to have to recruit people here. We talked about the possible disadvantages of West Virginia. That's one. If I had to try to find one, and there aren't many, that might be it. We've had really good luck with recruiting super talented people
from here.
Yeah,
sure.
So in the last year, we've hired 2 Jaeger scholars. These are geniuses, right? So we've had extremely good luck. We couldn't have found better people if we were in, freaking Palo Alto.
Whatever, yeah.
But at some point, our luck's probably going to run out. You got to be able to bring people in. Say that we have somebody that lives in, Cincinnati. They're going to come to Barboursville. That's a pretty big change.
Absolutely.
Or Huntington area, right?
Yeah, sure.
And we're talking about Barboursville a lot, but let's get real. Matt and I love Huntington, Spring Valley, everything around us. It's all the. That's what we need.
There's no insert town around Huntington without Huntington.
Exactly.
Right. There's no Barboursville without Huntington. There's no, in my opinion. I mean, yeah.
So when they come, we're sure to take them around to Huntington too, because that's what you want to see, right? Barboursville's there's not enough there yet.
That's right.
But in as much as you can show them the little downtown area there where we are on the corner, you want them to look around the same way they might in a Lewisburg a Fayetteville and be like, this is really charming.
Right.
I could see myself here. This is fun.
There's a little bookstore, a little record store, restaurant. Yeah.
That's cute. I'll have to bring my husband, my wife down here and show them. This is kind of cute. And I could see myself here. I think that's how you bring people to the area for us. And then for if you already live here, I mean, I just want to make it cool to hang out in.
That's right.
Honestly, I mean,
how many employees do you have here in your Barboursville offices? I should say
40.
40, and so you all have you not brought anybody in yet from out of town?
I don't think we have.
I don't think so. And if I'm being 100% honest, we've had a little trouble with it. We've actually tried a few times.
I guarantee it is.
And so that's what's spurring this on, right? Some of this. And
the people we have done that with lived here at one point.
Okay.
They were young, they moved away, and then they came back.
Yep.
I don't know that we've ever recruited somebody that's never set foot or lived here, you know what I mean?
Got it.
Yeah, and we're wanting to do our small part to make the area even more attractive. And I know there's many people in Barboursville and Huntington that are pouring resources and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into making that happen, and I love that about the area. We want to do our part right there, what we can control, which is our little pieces of property, and we're doing some neat stuff. Like we said, the restaurant's going to be great. It's been great before, of course, to pay homage to the people at Black Hawk Grill and Main Street on Central and all those folks. We want to continue that legacy. We want to open a few other things too, and one of the plans, just so you know, of our new build for people who, of course, loved the beautiful kind of landscape and those black walnut trees and everything that we unfortunately had to take down, but we're going to use in our new buildings, by the way. We're going to create this outdoor space as you're coming up Main Street and you're coming up to our 2 buildings there. There's going to be tables, chairs, fire pits, landscaping. I'm not even going to spoil some of the surprises, but there's going to be some really cool stuff for the community to enjoy. It's not just for us, it's for everybody. And so we want, when people drive up there, to really be wowed and say, this is awesome right here.
Thornburg Plaza.
Yeah.
Is that the name? I saw a mock-up design of it. It's going to be sweet, dude. You're going to like, you know what the coolest part is? I'll give one teaser here,
Yeah.
right? So you ever been in like a huge city and it's like the World Cup's going on or something, right? And, and somewhere in town square, there's like a massive, like freaking huge projector screen.
Yeah, video
and
board,
the whole everybody gathers to watch. We're going to put one of those in there.
Nice. Okay.
College football Saturdays.
Yeah.
Tons of outdoor seating. It's going to be neat.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the future. What are some long-term goals for Village Caregiving? What's next for Village Caregiving?
Well, we have big, bold goals, and that's the way Matt and I have always been. I think if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start something, that's probably just how you're kind of wired anyway,
right?
Or you wouldn't have gotten into it to start with. I think there's no reason why we couldn't and shouldn't become the premier home care agency in the United States.
Okay.
We're covering almost half of the states right now. What's your favorite fast food restaurant?
Wendy's, McDonald's.
Okay, McDonald's.
Yeah,
McDonald's of home care.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a time in the United States when the words fast food didn't have meaning, right? That becomes a thing.
That's right.
Not that long ago, that was home care. In fact, I was one time, this has probably been like 8 years ago, Matt, I remember this, we were like watching Jeopardy one night, and there was a question about, the answer was, in-home caregiving or home care. This is my own industry, and I didn't know how they were going to like phrase the answer to the question. I was like, this is interesting. So now it has a term, just like there's fast food.
That's right.
Home care.
Right.
This is a thing now. And it's like Matt described. It's not nurses coming into the house. It's not physical therapy. This is helping you with the tasks that Matt listed earlier. It's daily activities.
Go ahead.
I think that just following the model we've already used, using the common sense principles, treating people the right way, continuing to be smart, and then work really, really hard to put extra intention into recruiting and surrounding ourselves with super, incredibly, ridiculously talented and smart people, I believe we can get there.
Yeah.
The biggest obstacle to that happening might be me. That's why I keep trying to level up my game. And
sure.
That's real talk. Like people think, oh, you're being self-deprecating. I'm being dead serious. We've gotten now to a point where the company is really big, and I worry sometimes I don't want to crash this plane in the mountain.
Of course.
And that's what makes the job stressful for me, because everybody that works there is so. Well, like I said earlier, I love these people, and a lot of them are friends, and if they weren't before, they are now.
Sure.
So that weighs heavy on you, but I believe we can become the premier agency in the U.S.
Yeah. Are there any trends or changes in home health care, or any changes that you see on the horizon? How's this business? How's it changed in the last 10 years? What do you think the next 10 years are going to look like?
Yeah, I think in the last 10 years, you've seen this explosion from sort of mom and pop agencies, smaller agencies, to much larger agencies and franchised agencies. We're not a franchise, we're not a chain, and there's some advantages and disadvantages to both. I've been lucky enough I got elected to this Home Care Association of America board nationally, and so I get to rub elbows and hear the stories from some of these owners that own 600, 1,000, 2,000 agencies around the country, or even some internationally. And they're so encouraging, and I appreciate them, but they've encouraged us to just keep growing responsibly. They said, you can do this. You can do this even as a private agency. You don't just have to do this under a franchise model. Now, it's easier to grow as a franchise model because you can do that a little quicker, and they've learned lots of lessons over the decades too. But I think we can be the largest, the best private agency in the country. It's going to take some time. We're going to have to keep challenging ourselves, which is, for me, that's a personal thing that I find difficult, to keep pushing yourself, right? Don't get comfortable. Keep pushing yourself. It's why you got to where you are now.
Sure.
So
any other, you mentioned, hey, people ask us all the time if you want to start a new business, any advice? You mentioned hard work. Anything else on that? You could probably write a book on that, but
I might write a book on that. It might be the last thing I'm qualified to do in this life.
Right.
I've given this answer before, so anybody that's ever heard me talk, sorry to be a broken record, but it's just the truth. You should really think long and hard about if that's the life you want.
Okay.
If you want to start your own business, what I say a lot is, if that's something that you just have to do, like I can't even go on with my life. I'm going to regret this forever. If I don't, then do it.
Right.
But you should be very aware It's going to be harder than you think. It just is.
Right.
It's going to be harder in lots of different ways than you think. It's going to make you a different person that you aren't right now. Not a whole different person, but definitely a different version of yourself, because you're going to be challenged to do things and go to places and deal with stress that you've never dealt with before. It's a lonely place. If you're in roles like Matt and I are, there's no person behind the curtain here that's got all the answers to the test. That's
right.
just you.
That's right.
All right? So by definition, this is what makes the job really stressful to me. Oh, man, is this therapy session?
Hey, whatever, yes.
By definition, right, Matt and I surround ourselves with excellent people, really talented, and they go out and they do a million things. They do all the tasks, and it's hard work. By definition, the only decisions, the only problems that come all the way back up to you and are left sitting in this bucket are the absolute hardest, worst things that couldn't get done by all these all-stars you put around you all the time. And so your whole life is just left held in the bucket of like the heart. So you spend your whole life there.
Right.
That's a tough place to be.
Yeah.
And then your only guiding star is your conscience. It's going to probably be a net negative on your mental health.
Yeah.
That's something you should be prepared for. And so that's why I tell people, if that's not something you want to do, don't. Mm-hmm. There are other things in life that you could prioritize more, your family, your children, more than I want to succeed in business. That's fine. Right? I mean, that you should just think through, like, what do I really want out of my life? And that's a responsible way to look at it.
Yeah. Man, anything else on that you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, I'll rat Jeff and I out a little bit. My dad, who's a family doctor in the area, has been since the 70s. He told us when we first exited law school, he said, you guys are just going to have to start a business because I don't think you're equipped to work for anyone else. And he said,
Thank you, Bob Walker.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Dad. That's an insult and a compliment at the same time. On one hand, he was saying, you guys have all kinds of ideas, some of them crazy, some of them good, but you've got to explore them, and you might not be able to explore that in some settings. And so for people that are curious like that, like, can I achieve X? Can I open a business? You've just got to try. Even if you don't succeed, you succeeded by trying to do it, mm-hmm. I think. And we had things that have failed. I've had so many crazy ideas that have failed, it's embarrassing. But, if you have a good one, it might spark and it might turn into something like this. And so I'm proud that we took a chance and did that. So I'd just urge people to always take the chance on that. And I know that's easier said than done. It's expensive, it's risky, but you got to do it.
Right. Anything else I missed? Anything esse you want to add?
I don't guess so. I could keep talking. This has been fun. Thanks for having us down.
All right.
Everybody come to our restaurant, please.
Go ahead and do your sales pitch. What's the opening day?
I'll tell you what, I don't know, probably around July 1st because we just replaced the entire kitchen.
Okay.
I'll say this, Bruno is a really talented chef.
Okay.
I'm going to be 100% honest. All right, here's the sneak peek, right? This is Jeff talking. I'm going to get Matt in trouble, but I've never had Bruno's food.
Okay.
He's given us a few little bits to taste, but I've heard excellent things.
Okay.
Everybody I've talked to, he previously worked at Sleepy Hollow Country Club, had glowing things to say, and I like him too. I can tell you this, it's going to look great inside.
Sure.
It's, we left the bar area there. If you're familiar with Main Street on Central or Black Hawk, that entryway room is super cool. You don't want to mess with that.
That's right.
Right, so that's going to stay how it is.
Wood and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but then the second room, the third room, the kitchen, we've put a ton of time and love and money into that thing to make it something special when people come back to it in late June, July. But man, I tell you what, I eat there so much, there's nobody missing it more than me.
Right.
I need a place to go eat again.
So why in the heck are you all doing a restaurant? I mean, this one I'm like,
yeah,
you aren't restaurant guys, and I've seen this happen a lot. People are like, oh, I'm going to open up a restaurant. I'm like, why are y'all, what's the reason behind this?
We probably have different answers. Do you want to go?
Yeah, my answer truly is once we owned one of those buildings there in Barboursville, and then we got the second one, and we explored them, and we renovated them, and just I lived in one for a long time.
Okay. You
just kind of fall in love with that whole little 2-block area, and I just started wanting it. That may sound terrible, but I love the place.
Okay.
I've always loved it. I've had wonderful dinners there with friends and family and celebrated successes and different things. And we just really were eager to try to make it better.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I hope we can. And so.
So you just thought, man, it'd be a cool honor to take this mantle on and continue it.
Exactly.
That's neat. Mine was more so, honest to God, like, I just want to make sure it stayed a restaurant.
I got it.
If it turns into a hardware store, I don't have a nice dining option right next to the house. So that's pretty much simple as that. That's the truth.
And now you've got a nice, as you're bringing in people to recruit and so forth, now you got a great place to take them, right? I mean, they're going to get the 5-star treatment, I would assume, if you're taking them there for dinner.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be really, really nice.
Yeah.
And Seth Cyphers, who you might know, redesigned the entire inside. It's going to be a different vibe. For the first time, I walked in there the other day, and I was like, oh, this feels like a different place than I was in. So I hope people have that experience.
Nice.
And I think it's going to be great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I had a couple requests for Bruno, and I'm trying not to be hands-on and stay out of his business. Really good steak. There's going to be multiple. There's going to be a beef section on the menu. It's not just we have a steak on the menu. It's going to be, they're going to do it right. Some neat game type dishes, duck, venison, trout, some West Virginia specific garnishes, some Appalachian themed things. So those were kind of my requests, and he loves it. So I love it.
He's hired his own fermentologist. So even the butter, you get your bread, your rolls, and your butter.
Nice.
Those are 3 different butters that will be made in-house by a specialist in just that. Cool little things like that will make it really unique.
Yeah. And I love dry aged ribeyes and all that kind of stuff, and I saw that in your little sign outside the door now.
It's on there.
So that I'm excited for that.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all I got.
Thanks for having us. I'm a fan of the podcast,
Thanks,
and
man.
I want to say what you were doing, and then in conjunction with the chamber, we were talking about this before we got started, Tricia and her team, and then you guys work well with them. You can just see what a difference they're going to make for the community. They're so active on social media and out there on the streets in the community. Cool to watch, man, and,
it is.
And you deserve a lot of credit for that. In our house, we call you Mr. Huntington. He makes 9th Street Live. He's all over. I mean, you're just a great ambassador for Huntington, and I'm not just saying that to kiss up because I'm sitting here with you.
You said it to me privately, so I sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for having us down. Thanks for all you do, man.
Yeah, the buzz and vibe doesn't happen on its own, right?
No.
It takes some people to go.
I know. I appreciate that. I 9th Street Live, obviously proud of that. And again, we're talking about going back to what you all, now I'm getting off topic here, but talking about recruiting people, right? And keeping people here. I think our biggest problem in this state right now is population loss. And I bring this up on this podcast all the time. That's our biggest problem in West Virginia. We're the only state, I think it's either 1950 or 1970, that has fewer people today than it did in 1950 or 1970. The only state in the country.
Wow.
Okay? That's a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem for you to find workers and all that kind of stuff. And 9th Street Live, is it getting people here? No, of course not. Is it keeping people here? Maybe. Uh-huh. You know what? Maybe like I enjoyed that Friday night. I enjoyed that Saturday in Barboursville. I enjoyed hiking at Insert State Park here. Little things like that. Maybe it's keeping people here. I don't think it's going to attract. I don't think what I'm doing is attracting people, but maybe it's just keeping them. And that's a problem that we have here is population. To me, that's our biggest issue.
I think you're keeping people here.
Maybe
I love
you are
going
too.
to it. Yeah.
You are. What you're doing in Barboursville, it is. Little things, it all adds up.
Yeah, the collective effort will keep
not
and
one
retract.
thing. It's not one little thing in Barboursville or a 9th Street. No, it's all of it. And there's so many good little things going on in our community right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're killing it, man.
All right. I get all fired up when I talk about that kind of stuff.
You should.
All right, guys.
All right.
We can keep going.
Thanks,
forever.
sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's our episode. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Matt and Jeff, for joining us. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and even leave us a 5-star review. Season 2 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Automotive Huntington, MosesMeansMore.com, and powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications.